Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Constance the Reader, and today I'm going to be doing my Nonfiction November TBR. So if y'all have never heard about Nonfiction November, this was created by a book Olive quite a few years ago, and it's an initiative to read more nonfiction books during the month of November. I participated in this, I think, my first year of booktube, especially as I started to read more nonfiction, which I already do that anyway, but I just liked the idea of being kind of a part of, not really like a book tag type situation, but just, something to share more nonfiction books with people. So as I said, I read those anyway. I really like them. Something to know is there are 4 challenge words that you can use and interpret any way that you kind of feel is necessary. And for me personally, I'm not going to use these words, but I'll link everything down below. But the 4 challenge words are record, element, border, and secret. So you can interpret record or record or whatever as something having to do with music. You could interpret element, maybe a nonfiction book about global warming, something having to do with science. So there's so many different ways that you can interpret these 4 words. But like I said, for me personally, I'm probably not going to do that just because I have so many different options and I already have a list of nonfiction books I knew that I kind of wanted to read anyway. So that's what this is all about. So one of the first books I absolutely plan on reading next month is Constance Wu's book, Making a Scene. Love Constance Wu. Thinks that she's amazing. Already have the audiobook. And because I forgot about Nonfiction November, I was going to read it in October, but perfect opportunities to read it next month. I am a big fan of celebrity memoirs, just so you know. Gabrielle Union's, both of her memoirs I would absolutely recommend. They were fantastic, especially the first one. I always talk about Francesca Ramsey's book, although, I don't know that she really promotes it anymore because at the time of her writing it, she was married and she is now divorced. So I don't really often hear her talk about it, which is totally fine, but I thought it was fantastic. Gabourey Sidibe's book was amazing, and so was Ali Wong's. There's a few other celebrity memoirs that I've listened to that I really like, but just so you know, also go ahead, if you don't really want to, read them, but you like the idea of celebrity memoirs, I would suggest listen to Celebrity Memoir Book Club podcast. Very, very funny. Some of my favorite ones are the one about Olivia Munn. And other ones like Jenna Jameson. They talked about Jenna Jameson's book. Wild ride, to say the least. Very sad, but a wild ride. And then the next one I want to read is Jalissa Arce's You Sound Like a White Girl, A Case for Rejecting Assimilation. I heard about this particular book. I think it was like suggested on Amazon when I was looking at other books, because I haven't personally seen many people talk about it on TikTok. Doesn't mean that they don't, just means I haven't seen it. And I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it on booktube from the people that I do watch. But it sounds like it's going to be really fantastic. I don't know a lot about it, but essentially the author is talking about how, she unfortunately kind of fell into the assimilating, let me act more white, sadly the common story of Black or people of color, whether you're immigrants or you're African American or so on and so forth. I believe she is Mexican, but I'm not sure. Either just growing up here or coming here after the fact and feeling like you have to distance yourself from your culture and your identity to fit in with white people, white America. It's a really short book, so I think it's going to be one of the first ones I listen to. I'm pretty sure it's only like 3 hours, like 3.5 hours. So I'm absolutely looking forward to reading that. My TBR is a little ambitious as we move forward with the books that I physically own, not just the audiobooks. But I definitely want to read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Got this from Book of the Month Club. I've heard tons of good things about it, but also that it's like very sad. let me kind of summarize it for y'all. So this is Zonner's searingly candid coming of age story of growing apart from and then back together with her Korean identity, and of her forging her own path in the wake of a devastating loss. With humor and heart, she tells of growing up Asian American, straining to meet her mother's expectations, moving across the country and returning home to reckon with grief. She recalls treasured childhood holidays spent in her grandmother's tiny apartment in Seoul, and now in adulthood, learning to cook the Korean dishes that revive and nourish those memories. She savors the unexpected solace of weekly trips to her favorite Asian grocery store. So, this book is not that long. I think it's under 200 pages. It might be just a little over. Let's see if this is the acknowledgement page. No, so it's a little over 230 pages. So I do think that I think that this will not be like the one that I will not end up reading. I definitely think that I will get to this. I definitely know for a fact that I will listen to the audiobooks. Those will be the easiest ones for me to finish. But, you know, I'm confident. I'm confident I can read these because I don't have any other really big plans for November. And I may even go so far as to choose one of these books for the book club I have with my mom and sister. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone, all that good stuff. So I wanted to read this month, and I still may start it because I think that that's fine. You know, if you don't want it to count, that's on you. So this is Fat Girls in Black Bodies, Creating Communities of Our Own by Joy Arlene Renee Cox, PhD, forward by Taylor L. Pinkston. I got this a few months ago, I think like right before the summer of this year. Yeah, combating fat phobia and racism to reclaim space for women at the intersection of fat and black. I also chose this because I know that this one is under 200 pages. It is, let me see. I think it's like it is basically 130 pages. I absolutely think that I can accomplish reading this. And I'm excited to read it. Next, I definitely want to read The Making of Biblical Womanhood, How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth by Beth Allison Barr. So I got this, I believe, at the very beginning of the year. The cover really was intriguing, but of course, when you have a title like this, I mean, how can you not want to read it? Obviously, as I said before, I'm not really a religious person. Not really. No, I'm not. I'm not a religious person. But I definitely don't want to go on a tangent. How about this? The little thing at the top. I think this explains how I feel as well. It is time for Christian patriarchy to end. That's how I feel inside. So I definitely want to get to this, although I'm not sure. This one might be the one that might not make the cut, at least in the month of November. You never know. We're looking at a little over 200 pages, and I don't think that that's bad. It just depends. So looking forward to this one. Absolutely. And lastly, although I do feel like there's going to be other ones I pick up if I'm just like in the mood, but at least for the stack that's in front of me, I absolutely want to read White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color by Rumi Hamad. Yes, many people have read this. Many people have said how fantastic it is. I know that it will be fantastic. This, I guess, is probably the longest one that I have on the TBR. That's why I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to The Making of Biblical Womanhood, because I want to read this in November. This is 250 pages is not bad. I definitely think this is something that I could read in the month of November. But yes, absolutely wanting to read this. Let me look at a little read of the back. This explosive book of history and cultural criticism argues that white feminism has been a weapon of white supremacy and patriarchy deployed against Black and Indigenous women and all colonized women. It offers a long overdue validation of the experiences of women of color, taking us from the slave era when white women fought in court to keep ownership of their slaves through the centuries of colonialism when they offered a soft face for brutal tactics to the modern workplace. White Tears, Brown Scars tells a story of white women's active participation in campaigns of oppression. Absolutely. Another book I would recommend for this one, if you are interested in reading this and then other stuff like it, I would say Hood Feminism for sure by Nikki Kendall. Now, do I have another one? I would also recommend Lifting as We Climb, Black Women's Battle for the Ballot Box by Yvette Dion. So this is a great book because It talks about, it basically talks about how during the suffrage movement, what most of us have been, like the images that we've seen, the history that we've been told, really like shows the face of white women first and doesn't really talk about the fight for, you know, the right to vote by Black women, by Black activists. But how they also wanted to talk about, hey, can we stop lynching, please? Can we stop racism alongside this? And unfortunately, a lot of the women who were part of the suffrage movement did not want to do that. They thought that that was too extreme to try to have those two things go up at the same time. Like, oh, let's just worry about women's right to vote. And then when Black men got the right to vote before white women, the racism poked out. Okay, so now it was a damn mess, let's just be honest. And how then they appealed to the racist white women in the South, not for the sake of uplifting all women, but to basically shit on the fact that Black men got the right to vote before them. So they appealed to the racist Southerners to try and stop that from happening so that they could uplift white people, blah, 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 blah. I think that this is a fantastic book. It's very short, but it introduces you to a lot of Black women activists of this time who you probably have never heard of. This is also a book I highly recommend. Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower by Brittany Cooper. This is a fantastic book. I would absolutely recommend to everyone. And now this one is not within the same like vein as White Tears, Brown Scars, but another memoir I would recommend is That's Mental, Painfully Funny Things That Drive Me Crazy About Being Mentally Ill by Amanda Rosenberg. I think I read this year at the very beginning, if not the beginning of this year, the end of last year. This was a really fantastic memoir. It definitely found a way to balance the seriousness of everything that she was going through, but also having it be a little comedic at the same time, which I think a lot of people can relate to. And I definitely would recommend this one. The other one I recommend is The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls by Mona Eltahawy. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. If I'm wrong, I apologize. This was also a really, really good book, but also very sad. I follow Mona on Twitter. You should absolutely subscribe to her newsletter. She is very awesome. Mona shows how women around the world are tapping into their inner fury and crossing the lines of race, class, faith, and gender that make it so hard for marginalized women to be heard. Illuminating her call to action are stories of international activists and ordinary women whose struggles are often portrayed as distant from or unrelated to Western feminism. For example, across the US, South Africa, China, India, and Bosnia, women's experiences are not as different as one might assume. No matter the geography, rather than teaching women and girls to survive the poisonous system they have found themselves in, she arms them to dismantle it. It is clear why she is one of the brightest, most followed voices on feminism today. Brilliant, bold, and energetic, The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls is not a roadmap to peace with patriarchy. It is a North Star for anyone fighting it. It was a fantastic book, but of course, like a lot of nonfiction, like some, especially memoirs, I can rate them, but like a lot, I think a lot of people probably can relate to this. It's hard to rate something, especially if it is so, if it has like, if it gets dark, you know, like Jeanette McCurdy's book was amazing, but it's hard like to use that term like amazing when we're talking about like someone having gone through what she's gone through. But nonetheless, I thought that was a fantastic audiobook, so definitely recommend that one as well. So yes, that is my Nonfiction November TBR. If you are participating in Nonfiction November, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know what you're reading. Do any of these books that I will be reading appeal to you? Have you read any of them? If you want other suggestions for nonfiction books, I can absolutely give them. I have a ton behind me, some that I haven't even read yet. I've got one short one up top about like the gun culture mania in America that I really want to read. I have one about like the racism of suburbs and like redlining and things like that. So there's a lot of like topics that I would like to learn about that I have like on my shelves, which is really great. But if you ever want a recommendation about reproductive justice, about the patriarchy, about feminism, I probably have a suggestion for you. There are some really great ones about being anti-racist, fighting against the patriarchy, so on and so forth. So if you want any of those suggestions, let me know down in the comments. I would happily give them to you. I can take pictures, anything you want. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the video, please like the video. If you like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on other social media, because, you know, I'm trying to be better on those, you know. I post on Instagram now, so look at me. So thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.